Good morning and welcome, Wicked Smart listeners. Thanks for joining me this week. And by the way, happy New Year. Here we are, the first week in January. I hope you've set some killer goals for 2025. More importantly, I hope you have a plan in place with some accountability in place, with some coaches in place that'll allow you to be in a position 11 and a half months from now, mid-December 2025, saying, I am super glad I did that. I'm super glad I accomplished that. I crushed my goals versus I should have, I wish I had, so-and-so did, I wish I was there, et cetera, et cetera. This market is ripe to put yourself in a position to do exactly what I just insinuated. And I want you to be in that position. Now, reminder, I'm going to go ahead and chat with an amazing guest now. He's been on past episodes. You might want to jot these down. Episode 418, an episode going way back, 287. His name is Adam Carroll. Now, a couple reasons I wanted Adam back on the show. He's an amazing individual. And if you guys have not heard Adam or seen him speak at our events, he's been hanging out with the Wicked Smart community for a while. Just a quick overview on him. And then I want him to bring us up to date on what's going on in his world because it's absolutely amazing. He's a financial literacy expert, literally. And you're going to see why if you haven't met Adam yet. He's an author. He's a speaker. He's got over 1,000 speaking engagements behind him worldwide. What's really cool is you can go see his TED Talk. He's got a bunch of TED Talks, but he's got a TED Talk and a documentary, Broke, Busted, and Disgusted, inspiring young people to control their financial futures. I'm not going to tell you about his most popular TED Talk. I want you to go see it. It's very, very unique. Adam's also the founder of the Shred Method. It's a fintech company that empowers individuals to achieve debt freedom by shredding their mortgage. Guys, if that doesn't get your attention, buckle in here while we bring you the next Wicked Smart Masters class. Okay, Adam, with that as a backdrop, welcome back to, I think, the third or fourth show. Good to hang out.
This is our third. It's our third time officially hanging out in a studio. We've hung out many times before that, Chris. Obviously, you and I go way back. So this will be a fun combo.
Yeah, I love it. Because I wanted to catch up with you anyway, and I want these guys to hear what's going on. So I think, why don't we start with just a refresher, because there's a whole bunch of new Wicked Smart listeners.
Yeah.
Sort of what the Shred Method is, like give some background to that, and then fast forward and bring us up to date, and we'll dive in.
Yeah. So the Shred Method is basically a cash flow tool that creates the most efficient path for your money to make sure that you're doing the four things that everyone should be doing with their cash flow, which is number one, paying expenses. Number two, building wealth. Number three, eliminating debt. And number four, doing good and or having fun. And unfortunately, Chris, what we find is most people do two of those four. They pay their expenses and they have fun. They don't do the other two. So Shred, by its very nature, helps people eliminate debt and build wealth in a shorter time frame than most.
So it's not a buffet. They can't just do two things and get the same result.
I wish it were. It's funny too, the statistics that I'm seeing out there in terms of how much people are overspending their income is pretty insane. Obviously, I think this is going to air at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And people are going to look back on 2024 and go, gosh, I spent 105% of what I made. This doesn't work long term, right?
Right. Crazy. And what is that? Do you have a stat off the top of your head, actually? Because I know it's ridiculously staggering. Give me some rough ideas. This is great for New Year.
Yeah, the last data that I saw, and I want to say this was on CNN Money, but don't quote me on that. I peruse headlines all the time to try and grab these little nuggets, but yeah, I want to say they said it was 63% of the American population is spending over 100% of what they make. So it's 103 to 105% for that 2/3 of the population. And many of them, I mean, candidly, if we're talking, middle class, middle income folks, they experienced the inflation and the cost pressures of the last year. And I'm super sensitive to that because I know it's challenging for a lot of people. But I also think that what we've done as a society is we've paymented ourselves into a corner. You know what I mean? Like, I can afford this payment and that payment and this payment and that payment. And by the end of the month, you may be able to afford your payments, but you can do very little else. And if there are car repairs or there's, an unknown school expense, all of a sudden you're dipping into the credit card to buy essentials. And that's how we get to that 103 to 105% spending.
So before we unpack Shred, I just thought of something when you were doing that stat. How do you, in your work, how do you unpack old habits? because if they, okay, so if they step forward and go, okay, Adam, help me, please, and we'll give them links later to do this. How do you unpack that, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, this is an awesome kind of line of questioning, because part of the shred method package will do some coaching depending on what level you come in at. And financial coaching, from my perspective, Chris, I know you do a ton around real estate and helping people change their mindset. So much of our money relationship is mindset rooted in what we learned as a kid. And so I'll give you a prime example. We have a close friend and an ally of Shred who, when they first came to us, their money script, if you will, was, well, we'll never have a lot of money, so we might as well spend it now. And if you think about that script, which they said, I heard this over and over and over again growing up, we'll never have a lot of money, so we might as well spend it now. And it creates this very circular logic of never having enough or never having any, because about the time you think you're going to have some, what do?
Spend it.
You spend it, because we'll never have a lot, so we might as well spend it now. And it tees someone up for the fact that you might have some nice things in your house and you might really celebrate the fact you have nice things, but you have no security, no stability, no freedom. You're working to pay for the things that you've acquired. And again, there's very little else to put anywhere, because as soon as there's a surplus, it goes out the door to make sure that script remains true. So we like, in answer to your question, point blank, I like to dig into what were the early money memories and the early stories that were told about money, because quite often, if our money personality is set between 0 and 9, and your parents were in their 20s when they had you, the money script at that point in time probably was not positive, because not a lot of 20-year-olds have a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then, all right. So you start to unpack that in the coaching, depending on how aggressive they're getting. Yep. What are some of the steps, just so they can visualize it, Adam? And you might slant that a different way, but I'm thinking steps in my head. That's all.
Yeah. So, and it may be a helpful to understand, there's really 4 or 5 core principles of how Shred is operating and what people need to understand. Number one, which we've kind of talked about here, is you have to have more money at the end of your month. You cannot have more month at the end of your money. And so if you find yourself getting to the end of the month, you have not saved, you have not invested, you have not paid down debt, you've got to change some of your behavior in order to make sure you're keeping more of your money. And you know this, I know this, some of your listeners probably already know, so forgive me if this is kind of a duh statement, but it's said that it's easier to make it than it is to keep it, and it's easier to keep it than it is to grow it. So making it's real simple. You just got to go take action. We can all go clean windows in an affluent neighborhood and make a ton of money tomorrow, Keeping it requires behavior change, because we have to change the behavior that we have around money if we're going to keep more of it. And then growing it requires education. So listening to your show, going through Wicked Smart coaching, all those things are learning and growing the ability to keep your money and then grow your money. And so number one is we got to have more money at the end of the month, not more month at the end of our money. Number two is what you do with that money matters. So I'm going to throw this back to you, Chris. Is there ever a time where you have surplus on a monthly basis?
I would hope every single month.
I would hope so. Yeah. So what do you do with that money? I mean, generally speaking.
I have buckets. I always have. And Nick grew up like this. So buckets for investment, buckets for play, buckets for debt, buckets. Now, I fast forward last year, I got rid of 90-something% of my debt. So I now can tell you that it's better on this side of the fence. I don't have mortgages, et cetera. But that just all transitioned recently. So the buckets got me there.
Yeah. So what you do with that money matters. What you were doing was you're segmenting those funds into opportunity bucket, debt payoff bucket, et cetera. And what Shred does is we take whatever the surplus is and we say, let's put it towards the most efficient, effective thing you possibly can do with it, right? And so our system, which is powered by a piece of software run by some complex algorithms doing math, calculations in the background, is telling you, oh, you have X amount coming in. Let's apply it towards this because the return is going to be X. And so that's step number two. What you do with your extra really matters. Number three, and this is an important one, I learned this years and years ago, is that there are 2 great expenses that most people have in their life. Do you know what the 2 greatest expenses are?
I would think mortgage.
Yep. You're close. It's the interest expense on the debt. So on a mortgage.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the second one is the thing none of us like.
I'm not going to get the second one wrong. Go ahead.
It's taxes.
Taxes. Okay.
So the two greatest expenses that all of us have in life are taxes and the interest expense on debt. And many consumers will spend 2/3 of their life working to pay taxes and the interest expense on their debt. And the last third of their life is used to grow their wealth or even to have spending money for that matter. So here's the key. If we're going to use step 3, it's this. How do we minimize taxes? Well, that's for a different show and a different guest, probably. I'm sure you have folks who will talk about that. But it's buying real estate and it's owning businesses and, doing creative things so that you can turn personal expenses into business expenses. That's the kind of thing you would do to minimize taxes.
Right.
Secondly, is how do we minimize the interest expense on debt? And this is where most people don't even know that it's possible to do. But we show folks through the SHRED method, how do you accelerate an amortization table, get faster through the debt paydown process. So the first 10 years are not entirely interest. The majority of it is actually principal. And then you're ahead of the game faster. You've built equity faster, and then you create liquidity. And this is really step 4 is we have to understand what liquidity really is, that there is available money and there is accessible money. And the gurus out there will tell us, you need 12 months worth of living expenses in the bank at all times, right? And did you grow up hearing that, Chris?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever months, right? Whatever, 6, 8, 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do the math for an average American family, and let's say they make $6,000 a month, but they have $5,000 in expenses. So they have $1,000 extra a month and they're just getting started. If they need 12 months of living expenses, let's say for round numbers, and, 12 months of living expenses, that would be $60,000 that they would have to set aside according to the gurus. Yeah. So 6 years, 60 months, 5 years of saving and not doing anything else but setting that money aside, which would be totally inefficient.
Not realistic, right?
Not realistic. And so what we do is we say there's a difference between available funds and accessible funds. And you might need some available in the nature of 2 or 3 months, 4 months, depending on how long would it take you to get rehired? How quickly could you make money? Some of it depends on how big of a grinder you are. Can you go out there and hustle and make money? And if you can do it really quickly, then maybe you only need a month or 2 of available funds. But if we start building accessible money, that liquidity pool that we creates a whole lot of safety and security for us to go take chances elsewhere in real estate deals or whatever it may be. And so we teach people that the difference between available funds and accessible funds is vast because we can create a little bit of available right away, but we want to create a lot of accessible within a few short months or a couple of years. And then the fifth, and this is key, is what do you do with the equity you've created? And this being in real estate, one of the greatest things you can do is buy a property low and sell it later with a ton of equity. And that equity then you use to grow your wealth over time. Our goal is really to help people create massive amounts of equity in short order and then figure out what do I do with chunks of that equity to make sure that I'm building my wealth and continually paying down debt, but having fun and paying my expenses at the same time.
Love it. So I love to hear, without getting into private people's stuff, maybe a story or two that comes to mind, recent or whatever, a big aha from someone. Any thoughts?
Yeah. So there's 2 real quick. And one of the guys does a lot of work with you, does some investing with you. When he came to me, high income earner, did very well in his business. He and his brother own a company, have for 25 years. They've done very well. But he had a mortgage on his primary home. He had a mortgage on a lake home. He had 4 car notes. And then he had buckets like you were talking about for everything you could imagine. Future hunting trips, home repair, car repairs.
Bucket master.
He was a bucket master. And he had to have had 12 savings accounts, all of them listed, for what the money was for. And I just said to him, dude, this is inefficient. You're creating all these buckets, but you have liquidity or could have even more liquidity. The analogy I like to use, Chris, is people out there that create lots of buckets and think they're doing what's quote unquote right. It's like toasting a piece of bread with a flashlight. You're just like, this is going to be awesome at some point, right? I would rather toast a piece of bread with a blowtorch And that's what we're doing. We're going to toast the bread one at a time, but we're going to do it really fast. And so within about 2.5 years, here's what happened to this client. Paid off the primary, paid off the lake home, paid off all 4 cars, had tons of equity in the properties that he started repositioning into assets that allowed him to go invest in things like farm ground in the Midwest. And I'm in Iowa. This guy happens to be in Iowa. But in Iowa, you buy a farm just for fun. I don't know what you do in New Hampshire.
Not that.
Or Vermont. Yeah, not that probably. But so he had this amazing success story because he was spending, I think we figured out on average, he was spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000 a year in interest alone.
And no extra, I know what's going on in the listener's head. I know the answer, but no extra bump in income during that 2.5 years.
Nope. No extra bump, no change in living style or expenses. This is just a repurposing of cash flow in a way that most people don't think about. And it's really funny. Whenever I share this with folks from a stage or on a podcast, they'll say, why haven't I heard about this before? Or why isn't everyone doing this? And the reason is that we are brought up in a banker's business model. And when we play by the banker's rules, the banker wins. And we dutifully do our part in that. And if all we do is look at it from a 45-degree angle, a little bit differently, and go, what if I did this instead? Still using the banker's products, but readjusting how our cash flow processes through the system, you can have the same kind of results.
Okay, who wants to be the next apprentice? Pretty interesting, guys. We started this apprentice program back as a July 4th, 2024 promo. That's where it started. And it was so incredibly effective. We were just going to run it for the summer. It was so effective immediately. We kept it. It's in place now. And what is it? It allows you to get into the community, the Wicked Smart community, for less dollars than the QLS home study course sells for right now on our site. In fact, when you go to smartrealestatecoach.com/apprentice-pod, apprentice-pod, when you go there, you're going to see that as an apprentice, you're going to get over $13,000 worth of coaching, the possibility for you to touch base with us if you want to 4 or 5 times a week. And it doesn't exist anywhere out there, frankly. That's why we did it. We did it for 2 reasons. One, no one is giving you the support out there. We keep hearing feedback, which is how this was born, that other educators are not giving support. They're just selling stuff. So it doesn't exist anywhere, and nowhere in the real estate education or coaching space. And we want to help you do one thing, deals. So we've wrapped the support mechanism around this. We've allowed you to get into a Slack community with the other associates who previously were protected in Slack. And now you get to jump in there and experience that for 12 weeks. You also get to come to the In the Trenches bootcamp, which is private. It's a chance to hang out with the family team and one of the coaches for 2.25 days in our conference room, roll up our sleeves, get calls done, get deals done. If you come with leads, you leave with deals. Absolutely incredible. I could go on and on. Go to the website right now. Check out more information about the apprentice. And I'm going to give you the In the Trenches bootcamp site because you don't have to become an apprentice. It just happens to be free with apprentice and associate. So 2 links I'm going to give you, super important. smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB-pod. That's going to give you some information about the bootcamp. If you want to buy a ticket to the bootcamp, it's more expensive, but you can. Just to come check us out. About 1 or 2 people every time we run it do just that. Or become an apprentice, and it's for free. smartrealestatecoach.com/apprentice-pod.
I love it. I've got one more. Can I tell one more?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, because I think it's good. Variety is good for these guys to hear. Because you know what happens? They do it to us in our community. Yeah, but, my area, my circumstance, my paycheck, my this, my that. So give it a
Yeah, works for them, not for me. We've got a guy that he is probably one of the greatest shred advocates we have. And here is why. This guy, when he came to us, I want to say that he was probably, if he wasn't 50, he was near 50. And, I'm sure middle income, his spouse worked, they had 2 kids that were out of the house, but they're paying for college. And when he came to us, I said, what is your priority? And he said, I've had student loan debt. My wife and I have had student loan debt for the 25 years we've been married. So imagine paying every month your $168 or $272, whatever it was. He goes, for 25 years, I've made payments to the tune of, get this, $82,000 had been paid into the student loan system. And he still had like 50 grand left to pay off.
Wow.
So he only started with maybe 60, but he'd paid 80 in, and he'd only maybe cut down 10 grand over time. And so here's what happened. Within 6 months, all of the student loans were gone. And he did the math and he said, in the 25 years I paid in, 88% of everything I sent in went to interest. The interest expense on debt, right?
It's huge.
88%. In the 6 months that he was with Shred, 92% of every payment went to principal.
Love it.
And so this is one story. Now it gets better because what this guy did, he paid off his student loans, took his wife on a 25th anniversary trip, and presented to her as a gift the paid off statement of the student loans. Nice. And she was in tears, going through this. He then started going after his mortgage, paid it nearly off. I think he paid it in half, maybe. He was under $100,000 owed. And he used a strategy that we leverage all the time and talk about in our course, which is a recasting strategy. And recasting the mortgage is different than a refinance. It's basically when we pay it down, but we still have maybe 26 years, 25 years remaining on the mortgage. We can call our mortgage company and just say, hey, I owed $300,000 when we started on a 30-year fixed. I now owe $100,000 and I have 25 years left with the same interest rate. What is my new payment? And they will recast that mortgage. So what happened was he decreased his mortgage, eliminated escrows, which is part of our strategy. And he now can live comfortably in his home for about $525 a month.
Sweet.
Okay? His monthly payment, $525. Now, the next part of the story is a little sad, but also hopeful. Last week, his boss called him in, kind of a surprise announcement, but they're getting rid of his position.
Wow.
And he said, here's the thing. We were on a call last night. He said, I'm not stressed about it at all because I paid off all my student loans. I paid down my mortgage and recast it. He goes, I'm actually looking to the future with excitement about what I can create because I don't need that much to live comfortably. Now I actually feel like I can go take a risk on a new business or a new industry of some kind. That, in my mind, Chris, is what Shred gives you. It's peace of mind, it's freedom, it's flexibility, and it's choice.
He'll probably never feel that. New year coming up, probably the best point of his life, even though that happened. Yeah.
No doubt.
Thanks to your pre-work. That's awesome. Sounds like a good associate, by the way. Side note, we get him into
100%. It's funny because he sent me an email this morning and said, I'm one of the biggest champions. I wear it on my chest all day long and tell people about it, everybody that I can. Deep down, I think he'll probably become part of our team at some level. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. And you can't get a better spokesperson screaming from the rooftops on that,
right? We've hit one of the things I love, and I know you do. You've had associates that they just do the work, right?
Yeah.
And you know that when they do the work, they're going to get results.
Yeah.
It's just proven. It's a proven system.
Yeah.
The same is true with us. We know that if you follow the software prompts, you check in with coaches every now and again, join our calls, you're going to do the work and you're going to notice a massive, massive difference on the back end. And so, again, start of the new year, people are probably thinking, how am I going to get ahead this year?
Yeah.
Here's what I'd recommend. Find a system, whether it's Wicked Smart. Shred and Wicked Smart actually go hand in hand.
Well, yes.
They merge together so beautifully, but find a system and stick with it. And I've given this advice to your tribe before at some of the QLS events. But I said, if you do for 2 years what most people won't do, you can do for the rest of your life what most people can't do.
Yeah.
And that's true of Wicked Smart, and it's true of this.
Yeah. Predictable and proof of concepts out there for both of us. What I love, and I wasn't going to go, let me say this quickly, and I'll go to interest rates. So pay off your mortgage with Shred, and then go learn how to buy property with no interest.
Yeah.
Principal only. That's why there's a million reasons why we marry well, but the communities marry well because of that. There you go. Get debt free and then go buy property and never pay interest again. Do it on.
And imagine the power of this when you do them in conjunction. Okay, you're in a primary residence and you start getting, first of all, you get a payday one. Payday one's going to accelerate the equity creation. Payday twos are going to help you cover expenses, mortgage payments and the like. Payday threes, we drop big chunks in that create more liquidity, allowing us to do more things. And within a couple of years, you'd have the ability to recast your mortgage to a much smaller amount. And maybe one or two of your deals payday twos are covering your mortgage payment every single month.
So cool. Yeah, so cool. That works well together. And the bank and yourself, as you know, policies marry well with this whole concept. Like we keep going on. So let's talk interest rates. Only because I don't know if they'll ever be the 2, 3, 4% again, even though we can show people how to go buy those too.
Yeah.
But let's talk. Do you see an up or down trend in your community with people wanting to join when there's interest rates up or down? Like if interest rates are real low, do they go, I'm all set, I don't need shred?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was funny because when interest rates we're seeing people with 2.5%, 2.25% 15-year fixed, right?
Yeah.
It's silly money. I mean, it's crazy cheap for someone to go do that. Part of the challenge is they are emotionally attached to that interest rate.
Yeah.
Which means they're emotionally attached to not leaving the house. And it's a challenge for some people. We saw a lot of people come in when rates were that low, but they were really leveraging the power of getting a HELOC at 1 or 2% as well.
Yeah.
And now HELOCs, BLOCs, CV locks, whatever we're using, and these are like lines of credit for those maybe not in the know, home equity, cash value, or business line of credit. They're more like 7.5 to 10.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, even if your interest rate on your mortgage is 3% or 4%, and we're leveraging money out at a 7, 8, 9, 10%, you are still better off financially. You are still getting ahead by using shred, even if there is a 4 or 5 point spread on the money. And if that is like a head scratcher for people, I get it. You got to jump in the course and figure out why it works, because we teach all of that, the math behind it. My prognostication on all this, though, Chris, we probably won't see 2, 3, 4% unless there is a global pandemic again, some crisis. I think we could see 5. So if you're waiting to refinance, great. But here's my ticket. I would recommend you not refinance if you're at 5.5 or 6 or 6.5. If you're at 7, 8, 9, maybe. But the reason being that with shred, we've seen a 6% or 6.5% rate. Someone comes into shred and we create an effective APR of 2.5 or 3%.
Oh yeah.
And so, it's okay that you're at 6 or 7 if you just bought in the last 2 years. Let us help you get to a point where your effective APR is half of that.
I love the head scratches. Like when I say to people, you can buy this house free and clear for 180 grand, your profit's going to be 160. They just, what? I don't get it. So how do they get, let's give them some links. Actually, this is a good timing. They can see your tool, which is amazing. I'll give the link and you can tell them what they're going to see. So just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/shred. And then what will they see there? Because that's super cool.
Yeah. What you're going to gain access to at that link is our savings analysis tool. So what I like most about what we're doing, Chris, is we're going to show people point blank in black and white, here's what you're going to save. And usually if someone's in the first year or 2 of their mortgage, even if they're in the first 5 years of their mortgage, we're going to show them a savings of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Crazy.
And again, it is a head scratcher. People go, this feels like magic. It's not, it's math. And these are mathematical principles that bankers in general just don't want you to know.
Yeah.
Though I've talked to a lot of bankers who are great people who are like, no, I mean, if people want to do it, great. But just a lot of people don't because their behavior is ingrained in what we do.
Yeah.
So you'll see the savings analysis tool in black and white. Here are your savings numbers. And if you like what you see, which I think you will, there is the opportunity to have a 20-minute call with one of our team.
Nice.
And we'll run through your scenario with you and say, here's the kind of things that you can expect, and here's what to do next. And generally speaking, like this is a go or no go decision for people. Generally go, because when people see it, they're like, you mean all I have to do is this, and this is the result? This is a no-brainer.
It's kind of like we do. Again, there's so many similarities that align out. So we'll do an event, or we'll have the mini camps we have at the office, and we do the same thing. We go, here it is, guys. That come or not, but it's pretty simple, right? It's pretty black and white. Yeah, same thing. No pressure. Go check it out. smartrealestatecoach.com/shred. Is there a point? I know I said that was a wrap. I'm going to ask you another question.
Yeah.
Is there a point if someone's if they're in their mortgage for 18 years versus 5 versus whatever, is there a point that they should care about that? Or no matter what, just come check it out?
Yeah, this is a great question, because we do get a lot of folks who maybe have a 15-year and they're 5 years in.
Yeah.
Or they're on a 30-year and they've been there forever and they've only got 12 years left, right? The reality is, and this might be the best kind of metaphor for it. If you dropped a traffic signal over the top of your mortgage, right? The amortization table looks like this waterfall cresting down, and you put a red, yellow, green stop sign or stoplight over it. The first 10 years are red light, meaning the majority of your money is going towards interest. Yeah. The second 10 years are yellow light. More is going towards principal, still some towards interest. And then the last 10 years are green light. The majority is going towards principal pay down. But most people will only stay in their home 7 years, maybe. So we never get to green light. And if someone has been there for 18 years, they have 12 years left. Technically, you're still paying some interest. You've got a ton of equity. What I would say to those folks, Chris, is the interest savings won't be as great because you've already paid a ton of interest in. However, the cash flow process that we teach and the ability to tap that equity and use the equity strategically, that is your winning combination.
Long-term.
Long-term. So I like to say we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 is shred. It's blasting away the principal, creating a ton of equity. Phase 2 is, what do you do with the equity? We need to move it to some place where it's easily accessible and we can go deploy it where we want to deploy it. And phase 3 is, how do you build massive, passive, permanent streams of income? And that looks like finding investments that you can put some of that excess equity into that generate a passive return month after month after month or quarter after quarter. And once you do that and you've created enough income to supersede your expenses, you're financially free. And we believe you can do that in 10 years or less.
Love it. I couldn't have scripted that better as we wrap. Yeah. We've chatted a lot, so I just want to make sure. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't hit, Adam? In general, just given the January, here we are, 2025, or just given any new stuff going on.
You know, I will share one last item, and this has really been kind of heavy on my mind and heart over the last year. There is a lot of noise in the system. There's a lot of noise if you're paying attention to social media or news media, headlines, bad news. I mean, it's a running joke that Lester Holt every night starts the evening news by saying good evening, and then spends 30 minutes telling us why it's not.
Except for the last 1 minute.
Except for the last 1 minute, which we typically will like turn it on for the.
That's what I try to catch. That's it.
Yeah. And so what I want to say to your audience is this: it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening out in the world. What matters is what you decide to do with your life over the next 12 months. And I really believe this intently. I swore off social media and looking at news. I'm going on an information lean diet in the year 2025. And the reason I'm doing it is because I'm going all in on me and my family. I'm not going all in on all the garbage that's happening in the world, because there will be a ton of it, no matter what, no matter which side of the fence you're on, rich or poor, black, white, old, young, red, blue, doesn't matter. There will be garbage in everybody's periphery. And so what I recommend we all do is we get really focused on our business, right? And our business is our family, our immediate income, our savings, our wealth creation. It's us. And if we are somewhat blinded to all the stuff that's happening out in the world, we'll have a great year no matter what the interest rates do, no matter what the market does. It's up to us. And I know you're an execution guy and you're an ownership mentality guy. So I assume I'm preaching to the choir on this.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll wrap up with this thought of mine, just to comment that 90% call it 98, 95% of Americans don't do whatever it takes every day, no matter how hard it is, no matter how long it takes to accomplish their goal. They just don't. So if you're hearing all this crap in the periphery, then that's more reason just to shut it down. I love it. It's a great way to start the year. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links. The link rather we said several times in the show notes. Adam, thanks. Always good to hang out. I hope we can see you at the next live event in Boston. We missed you last year in Boston. So we'll get you in there and we'll chat a little bit after the show.
I would love it. Thank you, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Okay, Wicked Smart listeners, that does wrap up our time together today with Mr. Adam Carroll. Guys, if you have not yet gone to check out his shred method and other things he's doing, you want to make that one of your action items here. We super, super appreciate you hanging out with us today, Adam and I. I hope you got a nugget or two on that. Be sure to mark your calendars for the next In the Trenches Bootcamp, which is coming up in March. Go check out the dates. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB-pod. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/ITTB-pod, P-O-D. Make it an outstanding January. Let's launch your business in your entrepreneurial journey into 2025 like no other year. We're here to help. If you want to get a free call with me, let's figure out what it's going to take to kind of strip away some of those blocks that perhaps were holding you back over the years. Go to smartrealestatecoach.com/Chris pre-call. I'll get on the horn with you. We'll find out what's be standing between you and where you ultimately want to end up in December, and we'll put a master plan together. Look forward to chatting with you soon.
Hey guys, are you simply sick of juggling a dozen different software tools for your real estate business? I know I was, and I know I'm not a tech person, so it was frustrating. A subscription for this, you got a subscription for that, and they don't even work together out of the box. That's very frustrating, especially in the real estate world where your best time spent is going to be out in the field or on the phone with sellers. And now you're stuck hiring a tech guru just to make all that sync up. So let's ditch the chaos and let REI Black Book handle everything. Automate your lead follow-up, track every deal, analyze things quickly for you, make offers all on one platform. In fact, with the Wicked Smart platform, we now have access, if you're in the Wicked Smart community, to all the other associates' properties. Can you imagine that? So you're brand new in the business perhaps, and your seller looks on your website and sees 20, 30, 40 properties, instant credibility. So you're going to get everything on REI Black Book from our custom workflows for lead generation all the way to closing. It has it covered. Try it today for just $1, guys. Visit smartrealestatecoach.com/REIBB-DD. smartrealestatecoach.com/REI, as in boy, B as in boy, hyphen, D as in dog, D as in dog.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. If you're ready to invest in yourself and take your investing to the next level, check out our 90-day Jumpstart program by going to smartrealestatecoach.com/jump. That's smartrealestatecoach.com/jump, because now is the time to act boldly in this unprecedented market shift.